I recently came across on Facebook complaining that ASD is only a recently discovered phenomenon. In the comments section, someone disputed this by saying the first case of ASD was in 1943. Is this true though? It turns out the history of ASD, or autism as it was once known, is both rich and complex and full of unknowns. It's certainly not something that can be condensed cleanly into a short podcast like this, but I will attempt to give a brief overview. Obviously, you can't put a date on the first appearance of ASD. It's like saying Mount Everest was discovered in 1852, or gravity was discovered in 1687. They obviously existed before that. That being said, the earliest we can go back and give ASD a name is about 1879, when one of the founders of modern psychiatry, Henry Maudsley, described children with behavior that could be considered unusual as having a childhood psychosis. As I move into something that sounds somewhat like ASD, I want you to picture this as a spiral. We start from a central point and build upon the knowledge until we reach what is recognized today. As you consider ASD in that mindset, it is understandable that original understandings of ASD could be considered primitive and outdated in today's terms. Initially, ASD was linked with psychiatric observations of adults with mental illness. The term autism was first used by Sigmund Freud in 1905 and was connected to a stage of hallucinatory, suggested to be used for self-soothing by infants. During this period of childhood psychoses, numerous names were thrown around. As well as childhood psychoses, there was also infantile dementia and childhood schizophrenia. These all included a variety of differences in development, behavior, communication, emotions, and thinking. Looking at these cases in adulthood, Jean Piaget referred to it as an infantile state of egocentrism and was described as where the self and the environment are one and there are no permanent external objects. During the 1940s and 50s, this state of mind was given the name infant autism because it was theorized that children with schizophrenia did not develop beyond this state. This brings us to 1943, and the man who is often credited with introducing autism as a distinct disorder, Leo Kanner, an Austrian-American psychiatrist who wrote a seminal paper describing 11 children with an anxiously obsessive desire for the maintenance of sameness and an extreme aloneness from the very beginning of life. However, at the same time, and perhaps with some correspondence between the two, Hans Asperger was researching the same thing and designated the word autistic to describe the inward self-absorbed aspect that was reminiscent of schizophrenic withdrawal, but also unlike it. This is because children lack the hallucinations that are typically associated with schizophrenia. Unfortunately, the terms schizophrenia, psychoses, and autism were used interchangeably until 1980 when the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 3rd edition, or the DSM-3, started to use the term autistic disorder. Between the 1940s and 1970s, there was controversy and debate over the causes of ASD, arguing nature versus nurture. And it was not until the 1960s that autism was viewed as a behavioral syndrome rather than a specific psychiatric condition. This led to 3 key features being used in describing ASD during this time: profound abnormalities of language development, a variety of ritualistic and compulsive phenomena, and a particular variety of disturbance in interpersonal relationships. During this time, research was done on the linguistic patterns of children with autism. However, many researchers did not consider autism a linguistic disorder. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, ASD was seen more as a neurobiological condition, with links being connected to congenital rubella syndrome, and further research was carried out on increased head circumference as a factor of ASD. In 1987, the DSM-3 revised edition expanded autistic disorder to have 3 major impairment criteria: social interaction, verbal non-verbal communication and imaginative activity, and flexible thinking or behavior. The DSM-4 in 1994 expanded ASD to include Asperger's syndrome, Rett syndrome, and childhood disintegrative disorder. So where are we today? Firstly, the neurodivergent movement acknowledges autism as a condition rather than a disorder that needs to be cured. It does not differentiate autism into low and high level functioning categories, but introduces a more autism-friendly classification that appreciates the complete diversity of people with autism, including people who are non-verbal and diagnosed as having an intellectual disability. As the awareness of the condition continually rises, the understanding of ASD is also growing. With this modern movement helping educate those around them, it could be renamed again to Autism Spectrum Condition one day. So to finish up, I bring us back to our opening question. Was ASD first discovered in 1943, or even 1879. No, there are multiple cases throughout history of people having factors that sound similar to what we today define as ASD. Hugh Blair, a Scotsman in 1747 who lost his land rights on the basis of limited mental capacity, was described as socially tactless, having poor eye contact, and an insistence on routine and not interests. And predating him further were the Holy Fools of Russia. ASD has been around for longer than we can ever know and is still gaining a proper definition and understanding today.